80 years ago, the land ACMA occupies was a field of apple trees, adjacent to acres of horseradish. 80 years from now, our little art school, a magical place sprung from modest beginnings and grand ideas, will have celebrated its 100th anniversary.
It's a community that really, everyone supports each other, really cares about each other, and it's completely unlike anything I've seen anywhere else.
Arts and Communication Magnet Academy stands now on the threshold of an adventure. We look back on the grand history of our school in all its incarnations, revel in creative present that we helped to create, and turn our eyes forward to the possibility of our artistic future. To appreciate that future, it's helpful to go back to the start, that open field. The land that ACMA stands upon used to be an apple orchard under the name Ruchek Farms. In the late 1940s, Joseph Ruchek Sr. sold 10 acres of the orchard to enable C.E. Mason Elementary School to be built on a section of that land. That school building would eventually become ACMA, close to 50 years later. The elementary school was named after Curtis Eugene Mason, a well-respected member of the community. Born in 1880, the son of William and Isabella Mason, Dr. Curtis Eugene Mason, a prominent physician in Beaverton, spent his boyhood in Missouri after the immigration of his parents to that state, receiving his education in the public schools there. The Masons were of English descent and were Indiana pioneers, and Dr. Mason's paternal grandfather served in the Civil War, participating in Sherman's March to the Sea.
But he started out as an educator, as a teacher, and this is one reason why he had an interest in education. But he had expressed to his principal that he had an interest in medicine, and so that principal encouraged him to go to medical school, and ultimately he graduated from Rush Medical School in Chicago.
He came to Oregon shortly after he got his degree in 1911 and entered on hospital work in Portland, practicing for 4 years with Dr. Bodine. In 1912, Dr. Mason was united in marriage to Bertha Clement and then moved with his wife to Beaverton in 1917. Shortly after, he started his own medical practice in central Beaverton, helping the local community through sickness and injury. For over 14 years, C.E. Mason was the only doctor in Beaverton, delivering over 2,000 babies throughout the course of his career. On June 23, 1920, he was voted director of the Beaverton School District in a landslide 102-9 vote, with the promise of ensuring that Beaverton schools were as good as those in the big city of Portland. He was board chairman by 1929. Dr. Mason's pursuit of quality education for local students, including his own kids, helped to define the school district he was helping to lead. The 1930s and 1940s saw even more growth in Beaverton, and in 1947, the school district spent $15,000 to buy 10 acres of Ruchek Farms in order to build a new grade school meant to help with overcrowding. That school opened in the fall of 1949 as C.E. Mason Elementary. According to the November 1949 issue of the elementary school newspaper, Livewire, the new school was named and dedicated to C.E. Mason at a PTA meeting on October 25, 1949. By January of 1950, C.E. Mason Elementary was getting overcrowded, and so on January 25th, the school district board members voted 215 to 76 to approve a $150,000 bond to add 9 more classrooms to the building, as well as a library. Builders also added a play structure north of the assembly room in the same point in 1950, which stood until replaced by our familiar Quonset hut in 1958. By September of 1951, the construction was complete, giving the school a total of 18 classrooms. Inside the building, a team of educators greeted students with the energy always present in a new school. Principal Esther Peer was the first administrator in the building. In late September of 1949, she completed a teacher's monthly report, showing a total of 198 students attending the elementary school. She oversaw 11 teachers when C.E. Mason opened its doors in the fall of 1949 and presided over the hiring of a few more as the school grew. A decade into its life, C.E. Mason Elementary was an established school showing children how to behave in the world around them. A report from the Oregon State Department of Education from March 1951 says that
the spirit of the school is excellent. Children show their pride in the new school by their behavior as they move quietly and busily about the building. They show a desire to learn and an enthusiasm about the school curriculum.
Year after year, the kids filed in. Smiling faces, eager learners, tears, scraped knees, victories and defeats on the four-square courts. From 1949 through 1973, C.E. Mason Elementary was home to neighborhood kids, a solid foundation for future Beavertonians. Looking back at photos of students across the years is to see youth, what the country was like through the Cold War and into the turbulent 1970s. In school pictures, the collars widen, hair lengthens on both boys and girls, and formality gives way to a more colorful world. By 1973, however, enrollment in C.E. Mason had dropped below 400 students, and in June of 1974, it closed its doors as an elementary school. That's not to say that C.E. Mason ceased to exist. In the fall of 1974, the building welcomed students from Five Oaks Intermediate School, who stayed for 2 years as their new campus was being built. It was a new life for an old building, a renewal of sorts that would help to define our campus for the rest of the decade. On September 4th, 1974, 285 students from Five Oaks moved onto campus, determined to make it their own. They filled classrooms with music played on record players and donuts frying in electric skillets and culinary arts. The Quonset hut became home to the basketball team, gymnastics, wrestlers, and outside administrators bundled up to supervise in the rain. Five Oaks students had electives like woodcraft and tie-dyeing, and students from 1974 to 1976 remembered wearing brightly colored handmade shirts in the hallways. Out of the ordinary at ACMA is ordinary. It's what you should expect. I think that the wildly unexpected details that I've been able to learn in my time here continue to delight. And they shouldn't surprise me because anything can happen, and many things did here.
I think our focus in the arts and our general, our general, kind of jokey demeanor, again, the solidarity between always being in the school and how we always kind of hate it, but at the same time we can never think of leaving it. There's this kind of weird personal connection between all the students in the building, which I think is kind of nice.
And obviously today walking around, I'm like, wow, this school is pretty much, it has the same vibe, and part of that might just be this small elementary school type feeling to it. So I hope when they create the new building, it'll have elements of this as far as the hominess feeling that this school, or this building rather, embodies.
And then in February, we had an alumni event, and alumni came in, and there were some from C.E. Mason Elementary and a ton from the early years of arts and communication. And to take them through the hallways that some of them hadn't been in for, decades, for them to walk through and say, oh, I know who did that mural, and do you remember when? And they pointed out little details about the paintings on the walls in the school that were just so real for them. And sharing those memories, I think I'm going to miss that.
Seemed much more, a very different approach to education, very structured. We used to get lectured every morning at the first period. The principal liked to get on the intercom, and I think she was probably just reading something, but she'd give a little speech about, 5 to 10 minutes long about being a good student and everything. It was kind of interesting, but it was more of a blue collar school, and it was, I had some good friends and some fond memories, but it was very different from my first 4 years over at Raleigh School.
Since the early 90s when ACMA started as Arts and Communication, there was this spirit of, well, let's try. What if we tried? What would this be like? And I think that sense of adventure, artistic adventure, and open-mindedness, and excitement about having everybody in on the journey, I think that's what makes ACMA ACMA. And it doesn't happen without people.
The people, both the staff and the students, make this place special.
Just all the life experiences I've had over the past years have made me grow as a person and as an artist especially.
The teachers. I really like the teachers. They're very funny. They're really cool, and we have that. I think a lot of students are really close with them because ACMA is so small, and you get to have that one-on-one time with them, and I think that's what makes ACMA really special.
I think that there's a special kind of person that goes here. I think that artists kind of have this tendency to want to connect to people more, and I think that with that, a lot of the people here just kind of like, we have like this weird connection with each other because we're all here to do art. And
gosh, I don't know. There's a smell, there's a feel. I'm not sure it's all positive, but I think I'm gonna miss it.
All right. What do you think makes ACMA special or unique?
I think it's the energy that vibrates between the students and the staff, being willing to look at things through windows most people don't think even exist. Seeing things through the window of art is... When I, at my previous job, I played in a band, and my neighbor across the hall taught Spanish, and he was the drummer in the band that I played for. And we used to sit around after school daydreaming about what if we could teach at a school where art was at the core and everything else we taught was approached from that core. And I literally ended up working in my dream job.
Nice.